On May 23, 2019, a shocking case rocked the Shinjuku neighborhood in Tokyo. Yuka Takaoka, a 21-year-old woman, was found in a disturbing scene at an apartment complex. She was calmly sitting on the floor, holding a cigarette in one hand and her cell phone in the other, while next to her was her boyfriend, Phoenix Luna, badly injured. The neighbors, shocked by the scene, didn't hesitate to call the police. What shocked those present the most was how calmly Yuka reacted to what was happening. While her boyfriend was fighting for his life, she seemed unfazed and showed no remorse. She was so calm that some wondered if she even understood how serious the situation was. This detached attitude, so different from what would be expected of someone in such a situation, left everyone puzzled. The police arrived quickly at the scene and found the situation even stranger. Despite what was going on, Yuka didn't seem concerned. She was completely absorbed in her cell phone, as if nothing important was happening around her. This led the police to wonder if she was somehow involved in what had happened, since her indifference seemed out of place. The news of the case spread quickly, and social media was soon filled with comments. The media were eager to understand what had led Yuka to act in such a cold and calculated way. Many began speculating about her personality and possible motivations. How could a young woman so calm be involved in such a serious crime? The questions kept coming. As the first details of the case were analyzed, more questions arose. Investigators began to look into Yuka's life and soon discovered that her relationship with Phoenix Luna wasn't as simple as it seemed. The story was far from being just a tragedy of a couple's dispute. Rather, it pointed to a dangerous obsession that was brewing behind the scenes. In this video, we'll dive deeper into the details of this case, exploring how obsession, jealousy, and emotional issues led Yuka to commit such an extreme act. As we uncover the events that led to the crime, we'll see how what appeared to be an ordinary relationship turned into something much darker and more complex. Yuka was born on January 28, 1998, and grew up as an only child in a family that, on the surface, didn't have major problems. Her parents were financially stable and always supported her with whatever she needed. When she turned 18, they were able to afford her college tuition, and Yuka decided to study nursing, like many young people looking for a secure and stable career. However, Yuka soon realized that university life wasn't what she had expected. Although her parents provided everything she needed to keep studying, Yuka felt trapped in a routine that didn't satisfy her. That's when she decided to drop out of university and look for a way to make quick money, which led her to make a decision that would change her life forever. With the goal of finding more opportunities in life, Yuka moved to Tokyo, specifically to the Kabukicho area, known for its nightlife and its reputation as a place with bars and adult activities. There, Yuka began working as a hostess at a nightclub, where her main role was to interact with clients, make them feel good, and, of course, encourage them to buy more alcohol. Although the job didn't involve any intimate services, Yuka quickly realized she could make more money by making men feel special and valued. In this environment, Yuka began meeting influential people and making a name for herself in the nightlife world. She not only became one of the most sought-after employees, but she also realized that these types of jobs offered her a more exciting life full of luxuries. However, her search for quick money and popularity began to affect the way she viewed the world and her personal relationships. Despite the bad decisions she made in her life, Yuka also became part of the social media world. With her love for anime and cosplay, she started posting photos and videos on Instagram and other platforms. Her popularity grew quickly, and she started to be seen as a public figure, something that made her feel even more powerful and admired by her followers. This was the beginning of her rise in the digital world. Yuka was trapped in a cycle where fame, money, and superficial relationships were the most important things. Her life in Kabukicho, between parties and clients, seemed to be heading towards success. However, the decisions she made at that moment would lead her down a much darker path, where love, jealousy, and obsession would play a key role. Apart from her job at the club, Yuka started gaining popularity on social media, which led her to become a well-known figure online. She posted photos and videos on Instagram and TikTok, showcasing her love for anime and cosplay. Suddenly, her profile started gaining more followers, and Yuka quickly noticed the power social media had to transform her life. With each post, her follower count grew, and little by little she made a name for herself in the anime fan community. Her online fame didn't take long to attract the attention of brands and sponsors who wanted to partner with her image. At first, it was something small, but by 2018, Yuka was already working with several brands who wanted to capitalize on her growing popularity. What started as a hobby of sharing her love for anime turned into a source of income and a platform for others to admire and follow her. Yuka became a true digital celebrity, earning both money and recognition. In addition to her online success, Yuka also experienced a rise within the club where she worked. She was promoted to manager, which allowed her to stop working directly with clients and focus more on the administration. This promotion gave her more power and allowed her to establish new connections in the nightlife world, which in turn further increased her popularity. Yuka was seen as a role model both by her social media followers and by her co-workers, who respected her for her ability to manage her image. But not everything was perfect in her life. Although Yuka was achieving everything she had dreamed of in terms of fame and money, something was missing. Despite having so many followers and being admired by many, she felt an emptiness in her personal life. It was at this point that she met Phoenix Luna, a young man who worked at a rival club, Club Fusion. He was also popular among clients, but unlike Yuka, his success wasn't based on social media, but on his charisma and ability to connect with people. Yuka, intrigued by him, started frequenting Club Fusion under the pretext of enjoying the atmosphere of the place, but in reality, what attracted her was Luna. As they got to know each other, Yuka began to develop a connection with him, albeit in a rather obsessive way. Although their relationship was initially only professional, Yuka soon started seeing Luna as more than just a co-worker. The admiration she felt for him turned into something much more intense and difficult to control. At first, Luna didn't notice Yuka's obsession, but over time he began to realize that her attitude towards him was becoming more possessive. The young woman, who had achieved so much in her professional life and on social media, couldn't stop comparing her success to Luna's, which led her to try to control every aspect of their relationship. Yuka, who was used to having control over everything she did, began demanding more of Luna's attention and time, which caused a conflict between them. Phoenix Luna was born into a humble family, without many comforts or luxuries. From a young age, his life was marked by instability, as his parents separated when he was just 6 years old. After the separation, Phoenix was forced to live in foster homes where, in addition to the lack of family love, he suffered both physical and emotional abuse. Growing up in such a harsh environment without a constant parental figure left a deep mark on his life. At 15, after years of suffering in foster homes, Phoenix decided that he no longer wanted to be a part of the system. He felt he had to escape to find an opportunity to change his life. With a determination that only someone who has gone through so much hardship can have, he moved to Tokyo looking for something better, although he didn't have many expectations of finding the stability he longed for. In Tokyo, Phoenix found a city full of opportunities, although not easy to come by. He found work at a nightclub similar to the one Yuka worked at, a place where women sought entertainment and company. Although he had no prior experience in this kind of work, he quickly stood out because of his charisma and his ability to connect with people. In no time, he became one of the most popular employees at the club, with many clients seeking him out for his charm and likability. What made Phoenix so sought after wasn't just his physical appeal, but his ability to make people feel special. He had a unique way of listening and making each client feel heard and valued. This made him one of the club's top service sellers, as clients didn't just go for the company but for the experience Phoenix offered. The women who knew him saw him as someone genuine, which wasn't common in the environment where he worked. As his popularity grew, Phoenix started receiving more attention, and not just from clients at the club. His name began to be known outside of that world, and he soon became a recognized figure, even within the nightlife circles. His life, marked by struggle and resilience, allowed him to forge an identity that went beyond just being a club worker. He was proud of having overcome his difficult past and found a place where he could finally feel accepted. However, despite his success and popularity, Phoenix continued to deal with the scars of his childhood. Even though he had a relatively stable life in Tokyo, the shadows of his past continued to haunt him. The feeling of loneliness and distrust in personal relationships remained a challenge for him, but he tried to keep his life balanced while enjoying the small achievements he had attained. It was in this environment that he met Yuka, someone who would unexpectedly change his life. Yuka and Phoenix Luna met at Club Fusion, a place where he worked and where she started to frequent, but not for the reasons most customers had. At first, Yuka just went to the club as a way to escape her routine, but she soon realized that something about Luna attracted her in a way she couldn't explain. Although their relationship started professionally, something clicked between them from the very first moment, and that spark quickly turned into something more. At first, everything was part of the club environment. Yuka went to have a drink, enjoy the night, and eventually found excuses to spend more time with Luna. It was inevitable that the connection between them would grow. Luna, always charming and attentive, quickly realized that Yuka wasn't like the other customers. She wasn't just interested in him because of his job, but there was something more in her eyes that sparked a curiosity Luna couldn't ignore. Over time, their encounters became more frequent, and Yuka began finding excuses to visit him, even outside of work hours. They went out for dinner, to the movies, and as time passed, the chemistry between them became increasingly evident. They both enjoyed each other's company and shared more than just casual conversations about work. It was clear that there was something special between them, something that went beyond simple chats at a bar. Although their relationship started as a friendship that emerged in a work environment, the connection between Yuka and Luna deepened quickly. Every time they saw each other, it felt like they shared something unique that brought them closer. Yuka started falling for Luna, and although at first she thought it was just a passing attraction, she soon realized her feelings for him were much stronger than she had anticipated. Luna, for his part, seemed to enjoy the attention and company of Yuka. He wasn't used to someone treating him with such sincerity and admiration. However, as their relationship became more personal, he began to notice something strange in Yuka's behavior. Although the chemistry between them was initially very strong, signs started to appear that Yuka was becoming a little more possessive than Luna had expected. Yuka's interest in Luna began to intensify in an unhealthy way. What started as genuine affection for him quickly turned into obsession. Yuka began to want to be with Luna all the time, and the way she related to him shifted from admiration to need. She didn't just want to see him, she needed him to be by her side constantly, which soon began to affect their dynamic. Luna, who had initially enjoyed the relationship, now started to feel uncomfortable with the intensity of Yuka's feelings. Yuka's obsession with Luna grew in an uncontrollable way. What began as normal attraction quickly turned into something deeper and more problematic. Yuka didn't just want to be near him, she needed Luna to be available to her at all times. Over time, she began spending large amounts of money to make sure he worked exclusively for her. She saw it as a way to keep him by her side, so no other women could steal his attention. This need for control began to deeply affect her emotional stability. Yuka began to lose balance, her thoughts filled with insecurity and doubt. She started imagining that Luna might be involved with other women, which triggered an uncontrollable wave of jealousy in her mind. Every time she saw Luna talking or laughing with someone else, she felt like her world was falling apart. These jealous feelings grew stronger with each passing day, and anxiety consumed her. As her obsession intensified, Yuka began to lose touch with what was real and what wasn't. Paranoia took over her, and she started thinking Luna was hiding things from her. In this emotionally unstable state, Yuka felt she had to do something to keep him by her side forever. Instead of trying to resolve her insecurities, she decided to take more extreme measures. On May 20th, 2019, Yuka made a drastic decision. She rented an apartment in Shinjuku, one of the most iconic neighborhoods in Tokyo. This wasn't going to be just a place to live, but an attempt to tie Luna to her life in an even more concrete way. Yuka imagined that if they lived together, their relationship would be perfect, and she could control what he did and who he spent time with. It was her way of making sure no one else could get in the way. What seemed like a solution for her only increased the emotional imbalance she felt. Instead of trying to build a healthy relationship, Yuka was trapped in her own fears and desires for control. When she rented the apartment, she did so with the hope that Luna would agree to move in with her. But Yuka's expectations didn't align with Luna's reality, and he began to feel more pressured by her. In her mind, Yuka thought this would be the ultimate way to achieve her happiness, but for Luna, the deal meant losing the freedom he valued so much. Even though Luna wasn't completely convinced about moving in with her, Yuka believed that somehow he would end up agreeing. This was her way of holding on to him, making sure he wouldn't leave her. Yuka's obsession took over completely, and soon the line between love and possession blurred. Their relationship shifted from something sweet to a true emotional burden for both of them. Luna, feeling trapped and pressured, began to realize that the relationship was taking a dangerous turn, and what was about to happen would be a point of no return. Yuka's jealousy and need for control led her to a critical point. She no longer just worried about losing Luna, but also started to feel that if she didn't have him all to herself, she simply couldn't live. This mindset ultimately led her to make a fatal decision. The pressure built up, and disaster was about to explode. On May 23, 2019, the day that would change everything, Yuka reached a point of no return. In a state of desperation and obsession, she decided to make a fatal decision. While Luna was in the bathroom, driven by her jealousy and the need to control him completely, she stabbed him in the abdomen with a knife. The attack was as unexpected as it was brutal. However, despite the pain and shock, Luna, still with some strength, managed to react. Although his situation was critical, Yuka showed no remorse at the moment. Rather, she seemed disconnected from the gravity of her actions. While Luna tried to escape, Yuka pursued him, dragging his body through the apartment. As he tried to flee and reach the exit, Yuka followed him, showing no compassion. The scene was so surreal that the few witnesses, including neighbors, were completely terrified and confused by Yuka's lack of emotion. When the neighbors began to see what was happening, what shocked them the most was Yuka's attitude. Instead of showing concern for Luna's condition or trying to help him, she remained calm, smoking a cigarette while waiting for the police to arrive. Her calm attitude completely contrasted with the violence and suffering she had just unleashed. It seemed like to her everything that had happened was just part of a plan she had already decided to execute. When the police arrived, Yuka was arrested without resistance. During the interrogation, Yuka's words were as shocking as the crime scene itself. She explained that she did it because she couldn't live without Luna. Her love, as she described it, was so obsessive that she felt if she couldn't have him by her side forever, she would prefer he be with no one else. That was her justification for the crime, a love that couldn't be shared, not even with life itself. What seemed like an impulsive act was actually the culmination of an obsession that had been growing inside Yuka. The thought of losing Luna, of him drifting away from her, led her to think that only an extreme solution could save the relationship she imagined having with him. Thus, the obsession to have him completely by her side led her to a point of no return, where violence became the only option she saw. As Yuka was processed, the truth behind her behavior became clearer to the investigators. It wasn't a simple mistake or a momentary reaction. It was the result of a mind deeply affected by jealousy, control, and the need to have someone under her dominion. Her statement during the interrogation revealed that what many would consider an unthinkable crime to her was a solution to her completely distorted emotional world. After the crime unfolded, the case of Yuka Takaoka quickly became a viral topic in the media. What shocked the audience the most was her disturbing attitude throughout the process, which led her to be compared to a typical yandere anime character. In these types of stories, characters, especially women, are so obsessed with their love that they may commit violent acts, all in the name of overwhelming passion. This comparison, although frightening, fit perfectly with the behavior Yuka had shown in the days leading up to the crime. Yuka's fans, far from condemning her, began idolizing her even more. Many of them started creating fan pages on her social media, sharing her photos, videos, and any content related to her. To them, Yuka had become a sort of tragic heroine who, out of her extreme love, had done something others couldn't understand. Social media flooded with messages of support and theories about her story, some even justifying her actions. This phenomenon made her an even more well-known figure, though not in the way she would have wanted. Despite the attention Yuka was receiving on social media, Luna's life took a different turn. After surviving the brutal attack, Luna went through a long recovery process. Fortunately, his health improved over time, and not only did he survive, but he also returned to work in the same field he had been in before the attack. Despite the suffering he endured at Yuka's hands, Luna bore no grudge. In fact, in several interviews, he made it clear that he didn't hate her, and in some way understood that her behavior was the result of a sick obsession, not a conscious desire to hurt him. Luna explained that he never thought Yuka was a bad person. Despite how terrible the attack had been, he felt that in some way, Yuka had acted for an emotional reason that led her to do what she did. Her inability to manage her own feelings of jealousy and control, according to Luna, had led her to commit the crime. In his statements, Luna showed surprising emotional maturity, accepting that deep down, Yuka was never a bad person, but someone trapped in her own disturbed psyche. Meanwhile, Yuka's trial continued, and society kept a close eye. Yuka's defense tried to reduce her sentence, claiming that her action was the result of intense emotional pressure, and that, while the crime was serious, her mental state didn't make her fully responsible for her actions. However, the prosecution presented evidence that Yuka's obsession had been premeditated and that the attack wasn't an impulsive outburst, but a calculated act. The evidence, including her own statements, indicated that Yuka had planned the attack with the intention of keeping Luna by her side at any cost. Ultimately, the verdict was clear. Yuka was convicted of attempted murder and would face a significant sentence for her actions. However, the tragedy left scars on everyone involved, and the case of Yuka Takaoka would remain a reminder of how dangerous obsessive love can be. Meanwhile, Luna recovered and moved on with his life, leaving the pain behind, but never forgetting what had happened. After the brutal attack on Phoenix Luna, Yuka was charged with attempted murder, a serious charge that left no room for doubt about the severity of the case. Yuka's defense attempted to negotiate a deal with a financial fine, possibly seeking a more lenient outcome. However, the prosecution was firm in its accusation, arguing that the attack was not a momentary impulse, but a premeditated act, carried out with the clear intention of ending Luna's life. The details and evidence presented during the trial demonstrated that Yuka had planned the crime, convinced that if she couldn't have Luna by her side, she wouldn't allow him to be with anyone else. The evidence of premeditation was overwhelming. Yuka's text messages, her statements during the interrogation, and the evidence that she had bought the knife in advance were key elements in proving her guilt. The prosecution presented a clear picture that Yuka hadn't just attacked Luna, but had made that decision based on her jealousy and obsessive control over him. This obsession, which had grown over time, led her to see Luna more as property than as a person with freedom. During the trial, Yuka showed bewildering behavior, but also seemed aware of the magnitude of what she had done. At several points, her defense tried to argue that her mental health had been affected, attempting to downplay the seriousness of her crime by suggesting that her actions were the result of an inability to manage her emotions. However, the court rejected these arguments and handed down a sentence that reflected the severity of her actions. In the end, Yuka was sentenced to 3 years in prison for attempted murder. Additionally, she was ordered to pay a 5 million yen compensation to Luna as compensation for the physical and emotional harm caused by the attack. This compensation was a way to acknowledge the suffering Luna endured as a result of the attack. However, while the sentence seemed severe, many felt that it did not fully reflect the gravity of Yuka's obsession, which had led her to commit such an extreme act. After serving her sentence, Yuka was released and surprisingly returned to social media. Her popularity on the internet remained intact, and many of her followers supported her during her time in prison. Even some sponsors and brands that had been associated with her image before the crime reached out again to collaborate on projects. The phenomenon of her yandere figure in real life continued to be a subject of fascination for many, allowing her to capitalize on her notoriety and continue her career as an influencer. The story of Yuka Takaoka left many unanswered questions about love, control, and obsession. While she paid for what she did, many wonder if she truly understood the magnitude of her actions, or if she simply used her popularity to move forward without facing the emotional consequences of her behavior.